You talk too much about your dreams, and deep down, you know it. Every time you share your next big idea at dinner, every time you post about your goals on social media, every time you seek validation from people who have never built what you want to build, a part of you dies inside. Because you know the truth. You know that while you are talking, others are doing. While you are explaining, they are executing. While you are seeking approval, they are creating empires in silence. Look at yourself right now. How many plans have you announced that never came to fruition? How many dreams have you shared that are still just dreams? The brutal reality is that every word you speak about your future weakens your power to create it. But what if I told you that the richest man in history had a secret that could change everything? What if the very reason you are struggling to build real wealth is not lack of knowledge, not lack of opportunity, but something as simple as your inability to keep your mouth shut? I am Solomon, and today I will reveal to you the first rule that made me the wealthiest man who ever lived. This is not about positive thinking or empty motivation. This is about a fundamental shift in how you operate in the world. This is about transforming you from someone who talks about success into someone who silently creates it. You see, there are two types of people in this world. Those who announce their moves and wonder why nothing works, and those who move in silence and let their results do the talking. The question is simple. Which one do you want to be? If you are tired of being all talk and no results, if you are ready to discover why silence is the most powerful weapon in the arsenal of wealth, then you need to hear every word of what I am about to share. This is your moment. This is where everything changes. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at your dreams the same way again. And if this message resonates with the part of you that is hungry for real transformation, then subscribe now, because this is just the beginning of what I have to teach you about the ancient secrets of true prosperity. Number 1, the rule of silence as the foundation of prosperity. You have killed more of your dreams with your own mouth than any enemy ever could. Right now, as you listen to these words, you know exactly what I am talking about. That business idea you shared at the family dinner that was met with skeptical looks. That investment plan you posted on social media that attracted nothing but criticism from people who have never invested a single dollar. That vision you confided to your closest friend, only to watch them slowly drain your enthusiasm with their doubts and fears. Every time you speak about your future before you have built it, you commit an act of suicide against your own potential. This is not metaphor. This is mathematical reality. Words have power, and when you release that power prematurely, you scatter the very energy you need to create what you desire. I learned this truth in the depths of my own journey to wealth. Before I became the richest man who ever walked this earth, I was a young king surrounded by advisors, each one eager to hear my plans, to offer their opinions, to insert themselves into my vision. And I noticed something profound. Every time I shared my intentions, something inside me weakened. The fire that burns brightest in secrecy dims when exposed to the winds of other people's judgments. Think of a seed. When you plant it in the ground, do you dig it up every day to show your neighbors how it is growing? Do you invite crowds to examine its progress? No. You protect it in the darkness. You water it in silence. You tend to it without fanfare. And only when it has grown strong enough to withstand the storms do you allow the world to see what you have created. Yet this is exactly what you have been doing wrong with your dreams. You plant them and immediately dig them up to show everyone. You seek validation before you have results. You chase applause before you have achievements. And then you wonder why nothing grows. The mistake of speaking before doing is not just about losing energy, though that alone is devastating enough. Every word you speak about your future plans requires energy to manifest. When you scatter those words carelessly, you scatter that energy. But worse than energy loss is the exposure to criticism and sabotage that inevitably follows. I have watched men destroy billion-dollar opportunities simply by talking too much too soon. They share their vision with the wrong people at the wrong time. They invite criticism from individuals who have never created anything meaningful in their lives. They open themselves to sabotage from those who would rather see them fail than succeed. There was a merchant in my kingdom who discovered a trade route that could have made him wealthier than most nobles. But instead of quietly preparing, instead of gathering resources and building relationships in secret, he boasted about his discovery in the marketplace. Within days, competitors had blocked his access. Within weeks, others had claimed the route as their own. His words cost him a fortune before he ever had a chance to earn it. This is the brutal mathematics of premature revelation. Your words become weapons in the hands of your competitors. Your dreams become targets for those who have given up on their own. Your vision becomes vulnerable to the fears and limitations of people who have never dared to dream as big as you. But there is something even more insidious at work when you speak too early. You begin to seek validation instead of results. You become addicted to the temporary high of sharing your plans, the brief moment of attention and interest from others. This addiction to social approval becomes a substitute for the harder work of actually building something real. I see this everywhere in your modern world. People posting about their fitness journeys instead of actually exercising. Entrepreneurs talking about their startups instead of building them. Investors bragging about their portfolios instead of growing them. The dopamine hit from the post, from the comment, from the like becomes more rewarding than the slow, silent work of real progress. You have confused motion with progress, noise with productivity, talking with doing. And this confusion is costing you everything. The power of acting in the hidden is something most people never understand because it requires a level of discipline and maturity that few possess. It requires you to be comfortable with being misunderstood, with being underestimated, with appearing to do nothing while you are actually doing everything. When you work in silence, several profound transformations occur. First, your energy remains concentrated. Instead of dissipating it through words, you channel it directly into action. Second, your focus sharpens. Without the distraction of managing other people's opinions about your plans, you can give your full attention to executing them. Third, your strategy remains protected. Your competitors cannot prepare for moves they do not see coming. I built my wealth in the hidden places. While others debated policy in the courts, I was forming quiet alliances with traders from distant lands. While others made grand proclamations about their ambitions, I was systematically acquiring the resources and knowledge I would need. While others sought attention, I sought results. The discipline of strategic secrecy is perhaps the most difficult skill to develop in our age of constant sharing and instant gratification. But it is also the most valuable. When you master the ability to work without recognition, to build without applause, to invest without boasting, you develop a kind of spiritual and financial strength that cannot be shaken. Focus on execution becomes pure when it is not contaminated by the need for external validation. You make decisions based on data, not opinions. You measure progress by results, not by reactions. You build for the future, not for the moment. Consider the difference between a business that launches with great fanfare and one that emerges seemingly from nowhere, fully formed and powerfully positioned. The first attracts attention, criticism, and competition before it has the strength to handle any of them. The second appears when it is ready, when it has been tested and refined in private, when it can withstand whatever challenges the marketplace might present. I have seen technology companies destroyed because they announced their innovations too early, giving competitors time to develop similar products and larger companies time to acquire or crush them. I have seen real estate investors who telegraphed their strategies, only to find themselves bidding against armies of competitors who copied their approach. Conversely, I have witnessed the rise of empires built by those who understood the power of silence. They studied markets while others talked about them. They built systems while others built presentations. They created value while others created buzz. The fortunes that last are not built in the spotlight. They are built in quiet offices at 3 in the morning, in careful conversations with trusted advisors, in patient analysis of opportunities that others overlook because they are not exciting enough to post about. Money flows towards silence and away from noise. This is not opinion. This is observable law. The loudest voices in any industry are rarely the wealthiest. The most successful operators are often the least visible. They let their results speak for themselves, because results speak louder than any words ever could. Your transformation begins the moment you stop talking and start doing. Not next week, not after you have figured everything out, not after you have perfect clarity. Now, today, in this moment, you must make a fundamental choice. Will you be someone who announces intentions or someone who delivers results? The path forward is clear but not easy. You must learn to find satisfaction in private progress rather than public praise. You must become comfortable with being underestimated while you systematically over-deliver. You must develop the emotional maturity to work without immediate recognition, knowing that the recognition will come naturally when your work cannot be ignored. Stop sharing your plans with people who cannot help you execute them. Stop seeking approval from people who have never accomplished what you are trying to accomplish. Stop posting about your dreams and start building them, one silent step at a time. The world does not need to know what you are doing until you have done it. And when you finally reveal what you have built, let it be so solid, so valuable, so undeniably successful that no one can question it, no one can diminish it, and no one can take it away from you. This is the first rule of prosperity, and it is the foundation upon which all other wealth principles are built. Master silence, and you master the essential discipline that separates those who dream from those who achieve. Number 2, invisible preparation and building before display. You are building your house on sand because you refuse to dig deep enough to find the bedrock. Every day, I watch people rush to show their progress before they have created anything solid to display. They want the harvest before they have prepared the soil. They want the building before they have laid the foundation. They want the fruit before they have strengthened the roots. This impatience is not just inefficient, it is catastrophic. It is the reason why 90% of businesses fail within their first 5 years. It is the reason why most wealthy people lose their fortunes within a generation. It is the reason why you see so many people who seem to have everything one day and nothing the next. True prosperity is built in reverse of what most people expect. While others are focused on the visible, the wise focus on the invisible. While others rush to market with half-finished products, the prosperous perfect their systems in private. While others celebrate early victories, the wealthy prepare for long-term sustainability. I did not become the richest man in history by accident or by luck. Every piece of gold that flowed into my treasury, every trade agreement that multiplied my resources, every strategic alliance that expanded my influence was the result of invisible preparation that took place long before anyone saw the results. The value of patience in building wealth cannot be overstated, yet it is perhaps the most undervalued virtue in your modern economy. You live in a world that rewards speed over depth, quick wins over lasting value, immediate gratification over compound growth. But patience is not just waiting. Patience is actively preparing during the waiting. When I was establishing my kingdom as a center of trade, I did not simply announce my intentions and hope for the best. I spent years studying the patterns of commerce, the routes of caravans, the needs of distant nations. I learned their languages, understood their customs, identified their pain points. By the time I made my first major trade agreement, I knew more about my partners' businesses than they did. This is the difference between preparation and procrastination. Procrastination avoids work. Preparation multiplies work. Every hour you spend in careful preparation saves you 10 hours of crisis management later. Every day you invest in understanding your market prevents months of costly mistakes. Preparing the field before raising the house means understanding that everything visible rests upon something invisible. Your customers see your product, but they do not see the hundreds of hours you spent researching their needs. They see your service, but they do not see the systems you developed to deliver it consistently. They see your success, but they do not see the failures you learned from in private. Most people build backwards. They focus on the house and neglect the foundation. They want the impressive structure without the unglamorous groundwork. Then they wonder why everything they build eventually collapses. Silent study and observation are the secret weapons of the wealthy. While others are networking at conferences and posting insights on social media, the truly successful are quietly gathering intelligence that others overlook. They are studying data, analyzing metrics, recognizing signals that escape the attention of those who are too busy talking to listen. In my time, I established a network of informants throughout the known world. Not spies for political purposes, but observers who could tell me about weather patterns affecting harvests, political changes affecting trade routes, technological innovations affecting production methods. This information was more valuable than gold because it allowed me to anticipate opportunities and avoid disasters. Today, this same principle applies in every industry. The most successful investors are not those who make the most noise about their strategies, but those who spend countless hours analyzing financial statements, studying market cycles, understanding economic indicators that most people ignore. The most profitable business owners are those who know their customer data better than their customers know themselves. But information without action is worthless. This is where discreet prototyping becomes essential. Instead of launching with fanfare, instead of seeking publicity and investment based on promises, the wise test their ideas quietly, with real customers in real conditions, gathering real feedback. I remember a craftsman in my kingdom who wanted to revolutionize furniture making. Instead of announcing his grand vision and seeking investors, he quietly made a few pieces using his new techniques. He gave them to selected customers and carefully observed how they used them, what they liked, what could be improved. He refined his methods in private, perfecting both the product and the process before he ever revealed his innovation to the marketplace. When he finally launched his workshop, he already had proven demand, refined systems, and delighted customers who became his advocates. His success seemed overnight to those who had not been watching, but it was actually the result of months of invisible preparation. This approach protects you from the embarrassment and financial disaster of public failure. It allows you to make mistakes when they are small and correctable, rather than when they are visible and costly. It gives you the confidence that comes from knowing your offering works before you bet your reputation and resources on it. Risk management is not about avoiding risk. It is about taking calculated risks at the right time with the right preparation. Before you grow, you must protect. Before you expand, you must consolidate. Before you invest heavily, you must preserve what you already have. Protecting cash means having reserves that allow you to survive unexpected downturns and capitalize on unexpected opportunities. Too many entrepreneurs spend every dollar they make, leaving themselves vulnerable to the inevitable challenges that every business faces. The wealthy always keep significant liquid resources available, not because they lack confidence in their investments, but because they understand that cash provides options, and options provide power. Protecting margins means understanding the true cost of your operations and maintaining pricing that ensures profitability even in difficult conditions. Many businesses focus so much on growth that they sacrifice profitability, eventually growing themselves into bankruptcy. Sustainable businesses grow at a rate that their margins can support. Protecting strategic secrets means keeping your competitive advantages private until you are strong enough to defend them. This includes your customer lists, your supplier relationships, your operational methods, and your expansion plans. Once you reveal these assets, they become targets for competitors who may have more resources to exploit them than you have to protect them. The metaphor I want you to understand is that of the oak tree. An oak tree spends its first several years growing downward, developing a root system that will eventually support a massive canopy. During this period, it appears to grow slowly compared to other plants, but this apparent slowness is actually strategic preparation. When storms come, the plants with shallow roots are uprooted and destroyed. The oak stands firm because it prepared properly. When drought comes, the oak survives because its roots reach deep water sources that other plants cannot access. When competition for sunlight increases, the oak rises above because it has the structural foundation to support greater height. Strengthening roots before showing branches means building systems, relationships, knowledge, and resources in private before you attempt public growth. It means perfecting your core competencies before you expand into new areas. It means establishing a solid financial foundation before you pursue ambitious goals. Most people reverse this process. They focus on the branches, the visible parts, the aspects that others can see and admire. They want the impressive canopy without the extensive root system. And like trees with shallow roots, they eventually fall when faced with the storms that test all growing enterprises. Long-term vision requires you to make decisions that may not make sense in the short term, but are essential for sustainable success. It requires you to say no to opportunities that would provide immediate gratification, but compromise your long-term position. It requires you to invest in capabilities that may not pay off for months or years, but will eventually provide competitive advantages that cannot be easily replicated. I built trade relationships that took years to develop but lasted generations. I invested in infrastructure projects that cost enormous amounts upfront but generated wealth for centuries. I established educational systems that produced no immediate return, but created the intellectual capital that sustained my kingdom's prosperity long after I was gone. This is the mindset that separates temporary success from lasting wealth. Temporary success focuses on what can be achieved quickly. Lasting wealth focuses on what can be sustained indefinitely. Temporary success is about winning the battle. Lasting wealth is about winning the war. The practical application of these principles begins with accepting that true preparation takes time and occurs mostly out of sight. You must become comfortable with periods of apparent inactivity that are actually periods of intense, invisible activity. You must learn to measure progress by the strength of your foundation, not by the visibility of your structure. Start with understanding. Before you build anything, understand everything you can about the environment in which you plan to build. Study your market until you know it better than most people who work in it. Analyze your competition until you can predict their moves. Research your customers until you understand their needs better than they do. Then build systems before you build products. Develop processes for operations, marketing, customer service, quality control, and financial management. Test these systems on a small scale until they work consistently. Only then scale them up. Create value before you capture value. Solve problems before you worry about profits. Help people before you ask for payment. Build trust before you build transactions. The world is full of people who are in a hurry to appear successful. Be different. Be patient. Be thorough. Be prepared. And when your moment comes, when your opportunity arrives, when your competition stumbles, you will be ready not just to seize the moment, but to sustain the success that follows. Number 3, pure motivations versus corrupted motivations. You are chasing wealth for all the wrong reasons, and that is why wealth keeps running from you. Deep in your heart, beneath all the rational explanations and business plans, beneath all the talk about financial freedom and security, there burns a fire that is not about money at all. It is about proving something. It is about winning a competition that exists only in your mind. It is about healing wounds that wealth can never heal. Every morning when you wake up and think about your financial goals, ask yourself this question. Are you building wealth to create something meaningful, or are you trying to prove that you are worthy of respect? Are you accumulating resources to serve a purpose greater than yourself? Or are you trying to silence the voices that told you that you would never amount to anything? This distinction is not philosophical luxury. This distinction is the difference between sustainable prosperity and destructive obsession. This distinction determines whether money becomes a tool for building or a weapon for fighting invisible wars that you can never win. I have observed thousands of people who achieved great wealth only to discover that it solved none of the problems they thought it would solve. They accumulated millions expecting to feel important, but they felt empty. They built empires expecting to feel secure, but they felt more vulnerable than ever. They achieved financial success expecting to feel happy, but they felt more miserable than when they started. The temptation of ego is perhaps the most dangerous trap on the path to wealth because it masquerades as legitimate ambition. You tell yourself that you want to be rich to take care of your family, to have options, to build something lasting. But underneath these noble goals lurks a darker motivation. You want to be rich to prove to your father that you are not a failure. You want to be rich to show your ex-spouse that they made a mistake. You want to be rich to demonstrate to the world that you are someone worth respecting. When ego drives your pursuit of wealth, money becomes a drug. You need more and more to get the same feeling of validation. The first million feels incredible until you meet someone with 10 million. The 10 million feels impressive until you encounter someone with 100 million. You become trapped in an endless race against competitors who do not even know they are racing, fighting a war that has no possible victory because the real enemy is inside your own mind. I have seen brilliant entrepreneurs destroy profitable businesses because they could not resist the temptation to prove that they were smarter than their advisors. I have watched investors lose fortunes because they needed to show that they could outsmart the market. I have observed family businesses collapse because the children were more interested in proving themselves worthy of their inheritance than in actually managing what they inherited. The emptiness of vanity reveals itself not when you fail to achieve wealth, but when you succeed in accumulating it for the wrong reasons. Every conquest that serves only your ego ultimately generates fatigue and frustration because conquests cannot fill spiritual voids. Every victory that exists only to impress others becomes hollow because the approval of others is as temporary as their attention spans. You climb mountains expecting to feel triumphant at the summit, only to discover that the view from the top reminds you of how many other mountains still tower above you. You win competitions expecting to feel satisfied with your victory, only to realize that new competitions immediately present themselves. You accumulate status symbols expecting to feel complete, only to find that each symbol requires maintenance, protection, and defense that drain your energy and joy. There was a merchant in my kingdom who became obsessed with owning the largest house in the city. He worked tirelessly, sacrificed relationships, ignored his health, and compromised his integrity to accumulate the resources necessary for his dream home. When he finally built it, he invited everyone to see what he had accomplished. But instead of satisfaction, he felt only anxiety. Now he had to maintain it. Now he had to furnish it appropriately. Now he had to entertain in a manner worthy of its grandeur. The house he thought would prove his success became a prison of expectations he could never fulfill. This is the inevitable result of vanity-driven wealth. It multiplies your problems instead of solving them. It creates obligations instead of freedoms. It generates fear instead of security because everything you acquire to impress others becomes something you can lose, and losing it would mean losing the approval you worked so hard to gain. Pure motivations for building wealth begin with purpose and service. Instead of asking what wealth can do for your ego, ask what you can do with wealth for others. Instead of viewing money as a scorecard in some cosmic competition, view it as a resource that enables you to create value, solve problems, and make the world better than you found it. When purpose drives your pursuit of prosperity, several transformative things occur. First, your energy becomes sustainable because you are drawing from a renewable source. Ego-based motivation burns out because it depends on external validation that is never reliable or sufficient. Purpose-based motivation endures because it connects to something larger than your immediate emotional needs. Second, your decisions become clearer because you have a filter for evaluating opportunities. Instead of asking whether something will make you look successful, you ask whether it aligns with your mission. Instead of measuring investments by their potential to impress others, you measure them by their potential to create meaningful impact. Third, your relationships improve because people can sense the difference between someone who is trying to prove something and someone who is trying to build something. Others want to support missions they believe in. They resist being used as validation for someone else's insecurities. I discovered early in my reign that asking for wisdom instead of asking for gold was not just a spiritual discipline. It was a strategic decision. Wisdom enabled me to create systems that generated wealth automatically. Gold without wisdom disappears quickly. Wisdom without gold attracts gold naturally. This is the paradox that most people miss. When you stop chasing money for its own sake and start focusing on creating value, money begins to chase you. When you stop trying to impress people with your wealth and start trying to serve them with your capabilities, they willingly pay you for the privilege. Money is not a goal. Money is a byproduct. It is the natural result of solving problems, creating value, serving needs, and building systems that work better than the systems they replace. When you understand this truth, your entire relationship with wealth changes from desperate pursuit to natural attraction. Service as a filter means evaluating every business decision, every investment opportunity, every strategic move through the lens of how it serves others. This does not mean being naive or charitable to the point of unprofitability. It means recognizing that sustainable profits come from creating genuine value for real people with actual needs. The businesses that last are those that solve important problems. The investments that compound are those that support enterprises creating lasting value. The relationships that endure are those built on mutual benefit rather than mutual exploitation. But here is the truth that changes everything. Money is not neutral. Money is an amplifier. It takes whatever already exists in your heart and makes it bigger, more powerful, more influential. If greed lives in your heart, money amplifies greed. If fear drives your decisions, money amplifies fear. If ego motivates your actions, money amplifies ego. Conversely, if generosity guides your character, money amplifies generosity. If wisdom directs your choices, money amplifies wisdom. If love motivates your service, money amplifies love. This is why some people become more beautiful as they become wealthier, while others become more ugly. Wealth does not change who you are. It reveals who you are and gives you more power to express it. This is why examining your motivations is not optional spiritual work. It is essential practical preparation. If you build wealth on a foundation of ego, insecurity, and competition, that wealth will eventually destroy you. If you build wealth on a foundation of purpose, service, and contribution, that wealth will fulfill you and enable you to fulfill others. The transformation begins with honest self-examination. What do you really want money for? Not what you tell others, not what you tell yourself. What do you really hope wealth will do for you emotionally? Do you expect it to make you feel important? Do you believe it will prove your worth? Do you think it will solve your relationship problems or heal your childhood wounds? If your answers reveal ego-based motivations, do not judge yourself. Simply recognize them and begin the work of redirecting your energy toward purposes that serve others while also serving you. Find problems you genuinely care about solving. Identify people you sincerely want to help. Discover ways to create value that align with your natural talents and interests. When your pursuit of wealth serves purposes beyond your personal validation, when your financial goals connect to missions that matter beyond your individual success, when your business activities create value for others while creating profits for you, then money stops being your master and becomes your servant. And when money serves you instead of enslaving you, when wealth amplifies your best qualities instead of your worst fears, when prosperity enables your purposes instead of feeding your ego, then you will have discovered not just how to make money, but how to make money make meaning. Number 4, real exchange and strategic generosity. You give money away like a drunk man throws coins at street performers, and then you wonder why your wealth never multiplies. You confuse spending with investing, charity with strategy, and kindness with wisdom. Every dollar you release without purpose is a dollar that will never return to serve your mission or expand your capacity to help others. This is not a call to selfishness. This is a call to intelligence. True generosity requires true wisdom because random giving helps no one in the long term and eventually leaves you with nothing to give. Strategic generosity, on the other hand, creates value for others while building resources that enable even greater giving in the future. The difference between spending and investing is the difference between scattering seeds on concrete and planting them in fertile soil. Both actions involve releasing resources, but only one produces a harvest. Most people treat their money like water, letting it flow wherever emotional impulses direct it. The wise treat their money like seeds, carefully choosing where to plant them based on the potential for growth and multiplication. When you spend, you exchange money for consumption. The transaction is complete, the value is consumed, and nothing remains to generate future value. When you invest, you exchange money for assets, relationships, capabilities, or systems that continue producing value long after the initial transaction. The goal of investment is not to get rid of money, but to put money to work creating more money. This principle applies not just to financial investments, but to every way you deploy your resources. When you buy a luxury item to impress others, you are spending. When you buy tools that enable you to create value more efficiently, you are investing. When you pay for entertainment that provides temporary pleasure, you are spending. When you pay for education that builds permanent capabilities, you are investing. Giving without multiplying is emotional generosity. It feels good in the moment. It satisfies your desire to help. It may even provide temporary relief to the recipient. But it does not create sustainable improvement for anyone. The person you help remains dependent on future assistance. You diminish your capacity to provide future assistance. No one becomes stronger, wiser, or more capable. I have watched well-meaning wealthy people give millions of dollars to causes and individuals in ways that created dependency rather than empowerment, temporary relief rather than permanent solutions, emotional satisfaction for the giver rather than meaningful improvement for the receiver. Their hearts were pure, but their methods were flawed, and the long-term results were disappointing for everyone involved. Sowing in fertile ground means identifying recipients who can multiply what you give them. This requires discernment, patience, and sometimes difficult decisions. Not everyone who asks for help can effectively use help. Not everyone who needs assistance is prepared to transform assistance into improvement. Not everyone who deserves support has the capability to convert support into sustainable progress. Intelligent generosity begins with criteria, not emotions. Instead of giving based on how requests make you feel, give based on what gifts can accomplish. Look for recipients who have demonstrated responsibility with previous resources. Seek out individuals or organizations who have clear plans for multiplying what they receive. Invest in people who view your gift as an opportunity to create value rather than as a solution to their problems. This does not mean being cold or calculating. It means being thoughtful and strategic. It means recognizing that true love sometimes requires saying no to requests that would not serve the long-term interests of either the giver or the receiver. It means understanding that enabling dependency is not kindness, and that empowering capability is the highest form of generosity. There was a young entrepreneur in my kingdom who approached me seeking funds to start a trading business. Instead of simply giving him money, I offered him an opportunity to manage a small portion of my own trading operations. If he proved capable, he would earn the resources he needed while learning skills that would serve him for life. If he proved incapable, he would discover this truth without losing money that was not his to lose. He succeeded brilliantly. Within 2 years, he had not only earned the capital he originally sought, but had developed relationships and knowledge that made his eventual business far more successful than it would have been with just the initial funding. More importantly, he had proven to himself and others that he deserved success because he had created value, not because someone had given him charity. This is the difference between giving money and giving opportunity. Money disappears when it is consumed. Opportunity creates capacity that can be used repeatedly. Money helps once. Opportunity helps forever. Building strategic relationships through intelligent generosity creates a network of alliances that serve everyone involved. When you help others succeed in ways that also advance your own interests, when you create value for partners that enables them to create value for you, when you invest in relationships that generate mutual benefit over time, you build a foundation for sustainable prosperity that no individual effort could match. These relationships are not transactions disguised as friendships. They are genuine partnerships based on shared values, complementary capabilities, and mutual respect. They work because they serve everyone involved, not because someone is taking advantage of someone else. I built my wealth not through isolated individual effort, but through networks of mutually beneficial relationships with traders, craftsmen, scholars, and leaders throughout the known world. Each relationship began with value I provided to them. Each relationship continued because of value they could provide to me. Each relationship endured because both parties benefited from its continuation. Small silent gestures often open future doors more effectively than grand public displays. A quiet favor that solves a real problem creates more lasting gratitude than an expensive gift that serves no practical purpose. A strategic introduction that benefits both parties builds more social capital than a donation that benefits only the recipient. A piece of useful advice shared at the right moment generates more goodwill than money given at the wrong time. These gestures are silent not because they are secret, but because they are not performed for publicity. Their power comes from their genuineness, not from their visibility. They work because the recipient knows you acted from authentic desire to help, not from need for recognition or reciprocal obligation. The doors that these gestures open may not open immediately. The benefits may not appear for months or years, but when opportunities arise that require trust, credibility, or access, the relationships you built through strategic generosity become assets more valuable than money itself. Consistently sowing means systematizing your generosity so that it becomes automatic rather than impulsive. Instead of giving randomly when emotions move you or when requests pressure you, allocate a fixed percentage of your resources to strategic investments in people and opportunities that align with your values and objectives. This systematic approach has several advantages. It forces you to be intentional about your generosity rather than reactive. It prevents you from over-giving in response to particularly compelling requests, while neglecting equally worthy but less visible opportunities. It enables you to budget for generosity, so that giving strengthens rather than weakens your financial position. Setting aside a monthly percentage means treating strategic generosity as a business investment rather than as charitable expense. Like any investment, it should be planned, budgeted, and managed for optimal returns. Like any investment, it should be evaluated based on results, not just intentions. The percentage you choose matters less than the consistency with which you apply it. Some months you may invest in education for promising young people. Other months you may provide seed capital for businesses that align with your values. Some seasons you may focus on building relationships with potential partners. Other seasons you may support causes that advance your long-term objectives. The key is viewing every investment through the lens of multiplication. How will this gift create value that extends beyond the immediate recipient? How will this investment generate returns that enable larger investments in the future? How will this relationship create opportunities for mutual benefit over time? When you approach generosity strategically, several transformations occur. Your giving becomes more effective because it targets recipients who can multiply what they receive. Your resources grow rather than shrink because your investments generate returns that exceed your contributions. Your influence expands because people want to maintain relationships with those who create value for them. Most importantly, you develop the capacity to give more as time passes rather than less. Instead of depleting your resources through emotional giving, you build systems that generate increasing resources for strategic giving. Instead of helping fewer people as you help more people, you help more people because you helped previous people in ways that increased your capacity to help. This is not about becoming calculating or manipulative in your generosity. This is about becoming wise and effective in your stewardship of resources that could serve purposes far greater than temporary emotional satisfaction. When you give strategically, your generosity becomes a force for multiplication rather than just distribution. Your gifts create capability rather than just comfort. Your investments generate ongoing value rather than just momentary relief. And when your generosity serves strategic purposes while meeting genuine needs, when your giving creates value for others while building resources for more giving, when your investments help people help themselves while helping you help more people, then you discover that true wealth is not about what you accumulate for yourself, but about what you enable others to accomplish through strategic deployment of resources you have been entrusted to manage wisely. Number 5. Honoring the source and aligning prosperity with the sacred. You have forgotten the most important truth about wealth, and this forgetfulness is why your prosperity feels hollow even when your bank account grows. You act as if the money you earn belongs to you absolutely, as if the talents you possess originated with you, as if the opportunities you receive exist because of your merit alone. This illusion of ownership is not just spiritually dangerous, it is financially destructive. Every dollar you hoard in defiance of divine principles is a dollar that could have multiplied in obedience to them. Every decision you make as if you answer to no higher authority is a decision that cuts you off from higher guidance. Every success you claim as your own achievement is a success that isolates you from the source of all success. When I was a young king, I faced a choice that would determine not just my personal future, but the future of my entire kingdom. God appeared to me in a dream and offered to give me whatever I asked for. I could have asked for gold, for military power, for a long life, for the destruction of my enemies. Any of these requests would have been understandable for a young ruler facing enormous challenges. But I asked for wisdom, Not because I was particularly noble or spiritual, but because I understood something that most people miss. Wisdom is the source of all other forms of wealth. With wisdom, I could earn gold. Without wisdom, gold would disappear. With wisdom, I could build lasting power. Without wisdom, temporary power would corrupt and destroy me. That single decision, made in recognition that everything comes from a source beyond myself, opened floodgates of prosperity that made me the richest man who ever lived. But more than that, it established a principle that governed every subsequent decision. I would manage wealth as a steward, not as an owner. The principle of stewardship revolutionizes your relationship with money because it replaces the anxiety of ownership with the responsibility of management. When you think you own your wealth, you must protect it, worry about it, defend it against everyone who might take it from you. When you understand that you manage wealth that ultimately belongs to its source, you can focus on the more productive task of multiplying it according to divine principles. This shift changes everything. Instead of asking, "How can I keep what I have?" you ask, "How can I grow what I have been entrusted with?" Instead of being paralyzed by fear of loss, you are energized by responsibility for increase. Instead of viewing other people as threats to your security, you view them as opportunities to create value that serves the ultimate owner of all resources. Stewardship does not mean you cannot enjoy the fruits of your labor or provide well for your family. It means recognizing that your ability to create wealth comes from talents, opportunities, and circumstances that were given to you as gifts to be used for purposes beyond your immediate personal pleasure. It means holding your resources lightly enough to deploy them strategically, rather than clutching them so tightly that they cannot multiply. There was a farmer in my kingdom who inherited fertile land from his father. He could have viewed this inheritance as his possession to use however he pleased. Instead, he recognized it as a stewardship that came with responsibility to produce not just for himself, but for the wider community that would benefit from abundant harvests. This perspective led him to invest in better seeds, improved irrigation, and innovative farming methods that multiplied his yields far beyond what self-centered management would have achieved. His prosperity blessed not just his family, but his entire region. His innovations became models that other farmers adopted. His abundance created employment for many others. His stewardship mentality generated wealth that served purposes far greater than his personal comfort. And this alignment with divine principles attracted even greater opportunities and resources. The sacred flow is the recognition that everything comes from God, passes through you, and returns multiplied to serve God's purposes in the world. You are not the source of your wealth. You are not the destination of your wealth. You are the channel through which wealth flows to accomplish purposes that extend far beyond your individual life. This understanding transforms your decision-making process. Instead of asking, "What do I want to do with my money?" you ask, "What does God want to accomplish through my stewardship of these resources?" Instead of making choices based solely on personal benefit, you consider how your financial decisions align with divine principles and serve divine purposes. This does not mean becoming impractical or ignoring sound business principles. God is not honored by poor stewardship any more than he is honored by selfish accumulation. It means bringing spiritual wisdom to bear on practical decisions. It means seeking divine guidance for strategic choices. It means aligning your financial activities with eternal values rather than just temporal profits. When you recognize the sacred nature of wealth creation, you also recognize the sacred responsibility that comes with wealth accumulation. Every dollar you earn carries with it an obligation to use it in ways that honor its source. Every talent you possess comes with a mandate to develop and deploy it for purposes beyond your own advancement. This responsibility is not a burden. It is a privilege. It connects your daily work to eternal significance. It transforms routine business activities into acts of worship. It makes every financial decision an opportunity to align yourself with divine purposes and participate in divine work. Practical integrity becomes the natural expression of spiritual stewardship. When you understand that you will ultimately answer to God for how you manage the resources He entrusted to you, you make different choices about business practices, pricing strategies, customer relationships, and competitive tactics. Fair business is not just morally right, it is strategically smart. Customers trust businesses that deal fairly with them, and trust is the foundation of long-term profitability. Suppliers prefer to work with companies that honor their agreements, and reliable supply chains are essential for sustainable growth. Employees give their best effort to employers who treat them justly, and engaged employees create more value than disengaged ones. Principle-based decisions are not just spiritually sound, they are financially wise. Principles provide consistency that enables others to predict how you will behave, and predictability reduces the risk of doing business with you. Principles create a reputation that attracts opportunities and partners who share similar values. Principles establish boundaries that protect you from commitments and relationships that would ultimately prove destructive. The renunciation of easy profits that compromise integrity is perhaps the most difficult but most important aspect of aligning prosperity with the sacred. In every industry, there are ways to make money that violate principles, exploit vulnerabilities, or create value for yourself by destroying value for others. These opportunities often appear attractive because they promise quick returns with minimal effort. But easy profits that compromise integrity are never truly profitable because they damage the foundation upon which all lasting wealth is built. They destroy trust, which is the currency of all valuable relationships. They corrupt character, which is the source of all sound judgment. They separate you from divine blessing, which is the ultimate source of all prosperity. I could have increased my wealth quickly by cheating trading partners, oppressing my people, or exploiting my power for personal gain at the expense of justice. In the short term, these tactics might have generated impressive financial results, but they would have undermined the very foundations that made long-term prosperity possible. Instead, I built my wealth through fair dealing, just governance, and value creation that benefited everyone involved. This approach took longer and required more effort, but it created a sustainable foundation for prosperity that lasted generations and blessed countless people beyond my immediate circle. The choice between easy profits and principled profits is not just a moral decision. It is a strategic decision. Easy profits are limited by the damage they cause. Principled profits are limited only by your ability to create value for others. When you align your prosperity with sacred principles, when you manage wealth as stewardship rather than ownership, when you recognize the divine source of all resources and seek to honor that source through wise deployment of what you have been entrusted with, then wealth becomes a tool for spiritual growth rather than a barrier to it. Money stops being your master and becomes your servant. Prosperity stops being your goal and becomes your means to serve goals larger than yourself. Success stops being about what you accumulate and becomes about what you accomplish through strategic use of what you have been given the privilege to manage. And when your wealth serves sacred purposes, when your prosperity honors divine principles, when your success creates value for others while advancing eternal objectives, then you discover that the richest life is not the one that accumulates the most, but the one that multiplies what it receives in ways that honor the source from which all blessings flow. Number 6, God's timing and destructive comparison. You are destroying your future by measuring your progress with someone else's clock. Every day, you torture yourself by comparing your chapter 3 with someone else's chapter 20. You look at people who are 10 years ahead of you and wonder why you have not achieved what took them a decade to build. You see success stories on social media and feel like a failure because you are not where they are, when they are, how they are. This comparison is not just emotionally destructive, it is strategically catastrophic. It causes you to make desperate decisions, chase shortcuts, abandon sound strategies, and compromise your integrity in pursuit of artificial timelines that have nothing to do with your actual circumstances, capabilities, or calling. The danger of measuring your life by someone else's timeline extends far beyond wounded pride or temporary discouragement. When you let envy drive your decisions, when you let frustration with your pace push you toward unwise risks, when you let fear of being left behind cause you to abandon patient cultivation for desperate speculation, you sabotage the very foundation upon which lasting prosperity is built. Every person whose success you envy built that success on a timeline you cannot see, through circumstances you do not understand, with resources you may not possess, using methods you might not choose, making sacrifices you might not be willing to make. Their path is theirs, your path is yours. Comparing them is not just pointless, it is destructive. I have watched brilliant entrepreneurs destroy profitable businesses because they could not tolerate growing at their natural pace, while competitors seemed to grow faster. I have seen wise investors abandon sound strategies because they produced steady returns while others claimed to generate spectacular gains. I have observed patient builders tear down solid foundations because they wanted to reach heights that others appeared to have reached more quickly. In every case, the comparison led to decisions that served no one. The entrepreneurs who abandoned sustainable growth for unsustainable expansion often lost everything they had built. The investors who chased spectacular returns often lost the steady gains they had been accumulating. The builders who sacrificed solid foundations for impressive heights often watched their entire structures collapse. Envy and frustration are not just emotional problems. They are spiritual poisons that corrupt judgment, distort perspective, and lead to financial disasters. When you focus on what others have that you lack, you stop seeing what you have that you could develop. When you obsess over others' progress, you neglect your own. When you measure your worth by others' achievements, you lose sight of your own purpose and calling. The metaphor that explains this truth is the difference between bamboo and oak. Bamboo grows incredibly quickly, sometimes several feet in a single day. It impresses observers with its rapid progress, its ability to reach impressive heights in short periods, its dramatic transformation from seed to mature plant. But bamboo is hollow. It bends in strong winds because it has no solid core. It breaks in severe storms because it has no deep roots. It provides little shade because its rapid growth produces insufficient density. It serves limited purposes because its quick development prioritizes speed over substance. The oak tree grows slowly, sometimes almost imperceptibly. In its early years, it appears to make little progress compared to plants around it. Observers may wonder if it is even alive, so minimal is its visible development. But beneath the ground, the oak is developing root systems that will eventually support massive growth above ground. When storms come, the oak stands while plants that grew more quickly are uprooted. When drought comes, the oak survives while plants with shallow roots die. When competition for resources intensifies, the oak thrives while plants that grew too quickly to develop strong foundations struggle to sustain themselves. Speed that impresses versus depth that endures represents two fundamentally different approaches to building wealth and success. The speed approach focuses on quick wins, impressive gains, rapid scaling, immediate recognition. The depth approach focuses on strong foundations, sustainable systems, long-term relationships, compound growth. Most people choose speed because it feels better emotionally and looks better socially. It provides immediate gratification and external validation. It generates excitement and attention. It satisfies the desire to feel like you are making progress and the need to appear successful to others. But speed without depth is fragile. It depends on conditions remaining favorable, markets staying strong, competition staying weak. When circumstances change, as they inevitably do, rapid growth built on shallow foundations often reverses just as rapidly as it occurred. Depth takes longer to develop, but creates capacity for sustained growth regardless of changing conditions. Deep foundations can support growth during good times and survival during difficult times. Strong systems can generate profits in favorable markets and protect capital in challenging markets. Solid relationships provide opportunities during expansions and support during contractions. The protection that delay provides is one of the most difficult concepts for ambitious people to accept, because it challenges the assumption that sooner is always better than later. But premature success often destroys those who receive it, because they have not developed the character, systems, and wisdom necessary to handle what they have achieved. I have seen young people inherit wealth they did not earn and lose it quickly, because they never learned the skills necessary to manage it. I have watched businesses that grew too fast collapse because their systems could not support their scale. I have observed individuals who achieved rapid success become arrogant, careless, and ultimately self-destructive, because they never developed the discipline that comes from earning success gradually. Delay forces you to develop capabilities that instant success cannot provide. It requires you to learn patience, which is essential for long-term wealth building. It demands that you build character, which is necessary for handling prosperity responsibly. It compels you to create systems, which are crucial for sustainable growth. When success comes before you are ready for it, it often proves temporary. When success comes after you have prepared for it, it often proves permanent. The delay that feels like punishment is actually preparation. The wait that seems like waste is actually development. Faithfulness in the little is the qualification for responsibility over much. This principle applies to every area of wealth building, from managing small amounts of money to handling minor business decisions to maintaining basic commitments and relationships. If you cannot be trusted with small responsibilities, why should you be given large ones? If you cannot manage a few $1,000s wisely, why should you be entrusted with millions? If you cannot keep small commitments consistently, why should others believe you will honor large agreements? Excellence in what is currently in your hands is not just good practice. It is preparation for greater opportunities. Every dollar you manage well prepares you to manage larger amounts. Every responsibility you handle excellently qualifies you for greater responsibilities. Every commitment you honor builds the reputation that opens doors to bigger commitments. This faithfulness must be internal as well as external. It is not enough to appear responsible to others while being careless in private. True faithfulness means being excellent in areas where only you and God can observe your behavior. It means doing your best work even when no one is watching, keeping your word even when no one would know if you broke it, managing resources wisely even in areas where your stewardship is private. The practical application of these principles begins with accepting your current season rather than resenting it. Instead of focusing on where you want to be, focus on being excellent where you are. Instead of comparing your progress to others' achievements, measure your progress against your own past performance. Set timelines based on realistic assessment of your circumstances, not on artificial pressure from external comparisons. Plan your growth based on sustainable development, not on desperate attempts to match others' pace. Make decisions based on sound strategy, not on competitive emotions. Celebrate small victories instead of dismissing them, because they seem insignificant compared to others' large victories. Every small victory is preparation for larger victories. Every small success builds the foundation for greater success. Every small achievement develops the capabilities necessary for significant achievements. Most importantly, trust the timing that governs your individual journey. Your path unfolds according to principles and purposes that may be invisible to you, but are perfectly orchestrated for your development and ultimate success. The delays you experience are not punishments but preparations. The waiting you endure is not wasted time, but investment in readiness. When you stop comparing your journey to others' journeys, when you focus on being faithful in your current responsibilities, rather than envying others' greater responsibilities, when you trust divine timing rather than demanding immediate gratification, then you position yourself to receive blessings that are perfectly timed for your ability to handle them wisely and multiply them effectively. And when your success comes at the right time, built on the right foundation, prepared for by the right development, it will be not just impressive but sustainable, not just profitable but purposeful, not just significant but sacred. Number 7, the psychology of silent execution. You have become addicted to the drug of social validation, and this addiction is killing your capacity to create real value in the real world. Every time you post about your goals instead of working toward them, every time you share your plans instead of executing them, every time you seek likes instead of producing results, you trade the deep satisfaction of actual achievement for the shallow pleasure of perceived achievement. This trade is destroying your life. It is making you weak, distracted, and ultimately unsuccessful because you are spending your energy on performing progress instead of making progress. You are optimizing for applause instead of outcomes, for recognition instead of results, for social dopamine instead of actual dollars. The psychology of instant gratification that governs social media platforms is fundamentally incompatible with the psychology of wealth building. Wealth building requires patience, focus, consistency, and the ability to work for long periods without external validation. Social media demands quick hits, constant updates, immediate feedback, and perpetual performance of your identity. You cannot serve both masters. You cannot be excellent at creating value while being excellent at documenting your creation of value. You cannot focus on building systems while focusing on building your personal brand. You cannot optimize for long-term compound growth while optimizing for short-term social engagement. Trading social dopamine for real progress means understanding that the neural pathways that reward you for posting about your goals are the same pathways that should reward you for achieving your goals. When you satisfy those pathways with the easy pleasure of social sharing, you reduce their power to motivate the harder work of actual building. Every like you receive for talking about your plans reduces your internal drive to execute those plans. Every comment that praises your intentions satisfies your need for validation in ways that make the validation of results less necessary. Every share that spreads your ideas dilutes your energy for implementing those ideas. This is not theory. This is measurable neuroscience. The brain chemicals that create motivation are finite resources. When you spend them on social validation, you have less available for actual execution. When you get your reward from talking about doing something, your brain treats that as partially equivalent to actually doing it. The solution is daily discipline that prioritizes private recording over public sharing. Instead of posting your daily progress for others to see, document your daily progress for your own analysis and improvement. Instead of seeking external validation for your efforts, develop internal systems for measuring and rewarding your advancement. Create private logs that track your actual productive activities, not your aspirational intentions. Record metrics that matter for your business, not metrics that matter for your social media presence. Measure progress by results achieved, not by engagement generated. This discipline transforms your relationship with work because it eliminates the distraction of performance and allows pure focus on production. When you are not thinking about how to present your work to others, you can give your complete attention to the work itself. When you are not crafting posts about your activities, you can craft better activities. Focus routine becomes possible only when you eliminate the constant interruption of social interaction. Building wealth requires sustained periods of deep work, concentrated thinking, uninterrupted execution. Every notification that breaks your focus, every urge to check your social media that fragments your attention, every moment spent thinking about your online presence instead of your actual business reduces your capacity to create real value. Establish blocks of concentration during which all social media is inaccessible, all notifications are disabled, all communication is delayed except for genuine emergencies. Protect these blocks fiercely because they are where your actual wealth gets built. Everything else is just commentary. During these focus blocks, set specific output goals rather than time-based goals. Instead of planning to work for 4 hours, plan to complete specific deliverables that advance your business objectives. Instead of measuring effort by hours invested, measure productivity by value created. This approach forces you to work more efficiently because you are accountable for results, not just activity. It prevents the self-deception that mistakes being busy for being productive. It creates clear standards for evaluating whether your time was well spent. Exclude distractions systematically, not occasionally. Distraction is not an accident that happens to you. Distraction is a choice you make through the systems and environments you create. If social media distracts you, delete the apps. If your phone interrupts you, leave it in another room. If certain people drain your energy with unproductive conversations, limit your availability for those conversations. Your ability to focus is your most valuable asset as a wealth builder. Protect it with the same intensity that you would protect cash, inventory, or any other business asset. Every minute of focus you preserve is a minute that can be converted into value creation. Every distraction you eliminate multiplies the power of the focus that remains. Internal language becomes the foundation of your identity transformation from someone who talks about success to someone who creates success. Instead of saying, "I am going to start a business," say, "I am building systems." Instead of saying, "I plan to make money," say, "I am creating value." Instead of saying, "I hope to be successful," say, "I am executing my strategy." The phrase that changes everything is "do first, report later." This simple guideline revolutionizes your approach to every project, goal, and opportunity. Instead of announcing your intentions and then feeling pressure to live up to your announcements, you quietly execute your plans and then share results when they are undeniable. This approach has multiple psychological benefits. It eliminates the performance pressure that often leads to paralysis or poor decision-making. It prevents the energy drain that comes from managing other people's expectations and opinions about your activities. It allows you to pivot, adjust, and even abandon strategies without the embarrassment of public failure. More importantly, it ensures that your internal motivation remains pure and powerful. When you work in silence, your only judge is results. When you measure success by what you actually accomplish rather than by what others think about what you are trying to accomplish, you develop the internal compass that successful people rely on for decision-making. Results speak louder than promises, but only when you give them the opportunity to speak without competition from your commentary about them. When you let your work demonstrate your capabilities, rather than trying to convince people of your capabilities with words, you build the kind of credibility that opens doors and creates opportunities. People trust what they can see working more than what they hear described. They believe in track records more than in plans. They want to partner with individuals who have demonstrated competence, not individuals who have articulated intentions. Signs that silence is working become visible in multiple areas of your life, and recognizing these signs helps you maintain the discipline that silence requires when social pressures tempt you to return to performative behavior. Financial predictability emerges when your business activities generate consistent, measurable results rather than sporadic, emotional outcomes. when you focus on execution rather than explanation, when you optimize for profit rather than for perception, when you make decisions based on data rather than on social feedback, your income becomes more stable and your growth becomes more sustainable. Returning customers indicate that you are creating real value rather than just creating marketing noise. When people pay you repeatedly for your products or services, when they refer others to your business, when they increase their investment in what you offer, you know that your silent work is producing results that matter in the marketplace. Inner peace replaces the anxiety that comes from constantly managing your public image and seeking validation for your activities. When you are not worried about what others think about your progress, when you are not stressed about maintaining momentum that others can observe, when you are not pressured to perform consistency for an audience, you can focus your emotional energy on the actual work of building wealth. The practical 30-day plan that implements these principles begins with a complete social media silence about your business activities, personal goals, financial objectives, and professional progress. For 30 days, you share nothing about what you are trying to accomplish, nothing about what you are working on, nothing about what you hope to achieve. During this period of silence, you collect data about your actual productivity, creativity, and results. You measure how much more you accomplish when you are not spending time and mental energy on social documentation. You observe how much clearer your thinking becomes when it is not influenced by anticipated reactions from your social media audience. You conduct small experiments with different approaches, strategies, and methods without the pressure of having to explain or justify your choices to others. You test ideas, discard what does not work, refine what shows promise, and develop what produces results, all without external commentary or advice. Finally, you consolidate what you have learned in secret before you share any results publicly. You build systems that work reliably before you reveal those systems to competitors. You establish processes that generate consistent outcomes before you document those processes for others to observe. At the end of 30 days, you will have more real progress than most people make in 6 months of social media documented effort. You will have clearer direction because your decisions were not influenced by the need to appear consistent to observers. You will have stronger systems because you optimize them for effectiveness rather than for explanation. Most importantly, you will have discovered the profound satisfaction that comes from accomplishing something significant in silence, without applause, without recognition, purely for the intrinsic value of the accomplishment itself. This satisfaction is more sustainable and more motivating than any social media validation, because it connects you directly to the source of all lasting success. The ability to create value that serves others while serving your own highest purposes. When you master the psychology of silent execution, when you trade social dopamine for real progress, when you optimize for results rather than recognition, then you join the ranks of those who build wealth that lasts, success that satisfies, and legacies that matter long after the social media posts are forgotten. There's a moment that comes to every person who walks this path, a moment when you must choose between the comfort of the crowd and the power of solitude. It arrives quietly, without announcement, like dawn breaking over mountains that have stood in darkness for hours before anyone noticed their silent vigil. You will recognize this moment by the stillness it brings to your spirit, by the way it separates you from the noise of a world obsessed with being seen, being heard, being validated by strangers who will never understand the weight of your vision or the depth of your calling. In this moment, you will feel the pull of two directions. One path leads back to the familiar territory of explanation, justification, and performance for an audience that consumes your energy without contributing to your growth. The other path leads forward into the unknown territory of creation, where your hands become tools of manifestation, and your silence becomes the sanctuary in which miracles are born. The master craftsman does not invite crowds to watch him work. He closes the door to his workshop, lights his lamp, and begins the sacred process of transformation. Hour by hour, with no witnesses except his own conscience and the divine presence that guides all true creation, he shapes raw materials into something that will outlast his lifetime. His work speaks when it is ready to speak. His results announce themselves when they are worthy of announcement. His success reveals itself when it has grown too large to hide. If these words have stirred something deep within you, if you recognize yourself in the quiet spaces between ambition and achievement, then you are being invited into a fellowship of those who understand that the greatest fortunes are built in the silence between heartbeats, in the space between thoughts, in the pause between intention and action. Join those who have chosen the path of silent mastery, because the journey toward true prosperity has only just begun, and every step forward requires the courage to walk where others cannot see you walking. The seed grows in darkness before it reaches for light, and your greatest achievements are still taking root in the fertile silence of your undiscovered potential.